Beatrice Elachi, MP, Dagoretti North constituency. Good to have you back in the studio.
Thank you.
And she's here alongside Wilson Sosion, former NAT Secretary General. Wilson, good morning.
Well, good morning, Latif.
You know, the last time you were advising the government, what are you now? What?
I was advising government.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any official position
Not
of
official.
advisory.
Not official. I asked you whether it's official now that you're not got in the CAS position, and you said we are helping.
Yes, of course. It's common knowledge that I'm a supporter of Kenya Kwanza administration, and I'm part of the entire political network, but not necessarily government.
Very good.
Yeah, so we speak out within that space and outside that space.
Karibu sana.
Like this platform. This
Very
is
good.
your platform. This is not a government platform.
It is not.
So I'll speak my mind to Kenyans and to government at the same time.
And that's why we
I
like
speak
it.
freely.
We like inviting you so that you can speak freely. You're here, both of you, so we can talk about education. I'm going to welcome you with the day's proverb, courtesy of CT. You know what CT does. He has left us with the proverbs. This week, the proverbs are from Libya. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. And I know, there are people who say Libya is two parts of Libya. No. We are dealing with Libya, the country, whose headquarters is Tripoli. Ile ingine, watajisort. The naked man in the caravan has peace of mind. He whose covering belongs to others is uncovered. The naked man in the caravan has peace of mind. He whose covering belongs to others is uncovered. I'll start with you, Mtumishi Beatrice Elachi.
The naked man
In the caravan has peace
has
of mind.
peace of mind
Yep. He
And he
whose
who
covering
covering
belongs to others
to others
is uncovered.
is uncovered.
Yes.
Hey, if the naked man is in a caravan and has peace, the one who is outside now is the one who has no peace of what is happening now there.
She said, what is happening out there?
What is happening out there?
What's going on here?
The naked man, you know, there are people, let's say, for example, in our country, who are out there. They have a lot of peace in their mind. A lot. Especially, let's say, those who are in the rural, in the forests. They have no idea this naked world that we are in on this other side, how we are bungling each other and uncovering each other. And I think government is in that state at the moment. When I look at the political...
Government is in the forest.
And I know the people are the forest. When I look at government today, I am wondering what is happening there. They are covering each other in a manner that is not very good. That will... you find now the Mwananchi is having more peace than the person who decided to get into this government. So I think I will say that it is important for us to look, and I'm putting it in our political landscape. For the last 2 days, what I have seen, that uncovering of each other is not going to help anyone. And they need to look at it properly.
Okay.
And they realize that those who are inside somewhere are looking at them and wondering what is happening and where are they taking the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bwana Sosion?
You know, Mwalimu Nyerere, one time when the World Bank was pressurizing African countries to live on loans, he told Tanzanians, we would rather live in poverty but happy than to rely on World Bank money. So if somebody has covered himself with clothes that does not belong to him, then it's a bother. It's not yours. Yes, you are in some sort of comfort, some bliss, some happiness, some glory. But what is giving you glory is not yours.
It's false.
It is false. It is utter pretense. But someone who doesn't have any clothes, doesn't bother about anything, you enjoy, you are in peace, you are not bothered whether you have a cloth or not. So this is a matter of choice. What is yours is yours. When you don't have, you don't have. Yeah. But you don't cheat yourself with others'
Oh, yeah.
When you're beholden.
Yes.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you very much. I want to start with you, Wilson. The country is still in shock at what happened at Hillside and Russia. And we had 3 days of national mourning last week. The post-mortem exercise has been going on. There are parents who still want to find out. They want closure. They just want to their children identified, and then they can go ahead and conduct some sort of just closure ceremonies, whether it's burials or not. But this is not the first time that we see fires like this happening in schools. It's happened many times before. We've had a conversation with you before about school fires. When you see what happened in Russia, and then you see these other fires in the other schools, what immediately comes to mind?
And I've got to relive my conversations with you last time here. I talked about two things that have collapsed at the education sector. Accountability structures for the funds that we send to school. Nobody audits. Nobody checks. And we put in so much money that nobody really gives feedback of the value it does. That's one. Number two, deliberate collapse of quality assurance and standard or inspectorate section, so that our schools are not inspected against the set out policies and the minimum standards. And nothing much has changed. Nobody seems to listen. Nobody seems to care. And so in the Russia is, to me, it didn't surprise me. It didn't, and there are many other Russias out there. If you look at Russia, for example, the dormitory, the school is private. That's number one. Now, being private, what is our policy about enforcement of regulations and compliance of minimum standard by private schools in Kenya? Who gave the license and the permit for the school to operate without meeting the minimum standards? Why? Look at the dormitory. It's made of timber. The partitions is made of timber. The beds are made of timber. And the doors are locked from outside at night. And it is congested. You know, when you make a timber dormitory, you're preparing an incinerator to incinerate children. And I don't think within the plans and designs of the ministry, dormitories made of timber are approved for any school. That would be a great and inherent risk.
I think there are standards that clearly stipulate the materials to be used.
Of course. No, there is no provision for building up of wooden structures as dormitories in our schools, particularly when you're talking about boarding schools, secondary schools, primary school. I don't think there is that provision. That said, all our buildings must meet minimum international standards.
And so you're saying if there was standard quality assurance, that they would have been able to find out that such a thing existed and done something about it.
Yes, okay. But then even the quality assurance would have generated a report before the registration of the schools. Was that done? There are many questions that goes into it. And you see, there was an allegation that it was an electric fault. We have found a very good excuse of hiding behind electric faults with these coal fires. But since Kenya Power has come out and has dismissed that allegation that there was no electric fault, so that this fire at Russia was deliberate arson, is a criminal action. And yes, it's criminal action. That's a fact. Those who fear saying so, yes, let's accept to mourn, but also let's take action. The DCI, DPP, they should be able to get those responsible. But who must bear the responsibility? Two people, the proprietor of the school and the Ministry of Education. Whoever authorized the certification of the school to operate, a person must take responsibility. We must learn to punish those who violate crimes and violate our policies. But we should not allow cartels to reign supreme in the sector. You know, what is happening? If private schools are getting a leeway to put up substandard structures and violate regulations merely to make business using our children, that indeed is immoral, it's unacceptable. It is not educational at all, it's unpatriotic. And therefore, to me, this must be punished for deterrent reasons. This must be punished. The proprietor of the school and the ministry. We don't need to talk about it, mourn, put the flag at half-mast for a few days and forget about it. And then we continue again witnessing fires in secondary schools, and fires are in dormitories. I said it in 2017, 2018. I talked about very loudly that we must be able to check, why are dormitories being burnt? Why not classrooms? Why not labs? Why not dining halls? Why not food stores? The students know. Why not school buses? Yeah. Why only the dormitory? You know, the Jubilee administration, and you see, this is where, when we take over even education and we run it politically, using cartels, these are the things we get. And we don't seem to be getting out of that that platform. We still run cartel issues. When Jubilee administration woke up from nowhere and directed that we have 100% transition to secondary school without giving proper guidelines and conversation, because if we needed 100% transition, we should have restricted it to day schools and controlled enrollment in boarding schools. But now what happened, coupled with the amount of money that comes with capitation, the more the students, the more the capitation, and the more the business in procurement, the more the corruption, the more the everything that you know all about. So the easiest thing to do is to congest students in dormitories. Some schools have prepared triple deckers. Some students are sleeping in 2s, in 3s, and with poor sanitation and with poor everything. What do you expect students to do? To react? To me, this banning of dormitories is being executed by students to express their disaffection. And I wonder how long it's going to take us to understand this. The 100% transition, that caused the over-enrollment and congestion in boarding schools very deliberately, is something that was not checked. We should have executed 100% transition through clear professional policies guided by quality assurance and with inspection reports of preparedness of schools in terms of infrastructure and boarding, and schools that do not have capacity to accommodate extra students in boarding should be restricted not to do so. Because what we are witnessing
is something else.
Yes.
Let me pause
if you visit some of these secondary schools where there is a lot of congestion, you will weep and you luckily shed tears.
What are we saying here, Wilson? Are we saying that we do not have a sufficient number of secondary schools in this country to accommodate the children that are coming from primary school? If we have
how many day schools do we have? How many day secondary schools do you have in Kenya? And all you need for day secondary schools is classrooms, laboratories, and available teachers, and that's enough. You don't need anything else. And I need to tell you, if we go by data, I have been a very strong proponent of day education for the entire period I've been in leadership at NAT. And I helped put up very many day schools in Bomet. And this has been a general campaign through EFA goals, Education for All goals, 2000 to 2015, which advocated for all children to come to school. And we could not do it without opening up day education in Kenya and enhancing quality. And I can tell you that today in 2024, 74% of the students in secondary schools are in day schools. They are day scholars. They are doing well, and Kenyans have accepted. It has become a norm. And in terms of national exams at KCSE level, we have quite a number of them scoring A's and doing very well and proceeding to universities.
So then why do we have congestion in the boarding school?
The congestion in boarding school is more to do with business and lack of regulation of enrollment and operations of boarding schools.
Is it that we have fewer boarding schools than that would?
Do we need more anyway? We need to phase them out. If we are at 74%. We're at 74% day education, we can move even up to 90%. Let me tell you what happens in many jurisdictions
what leads to this
in terms of systems. Let me tell you what happens in many jurisdictions in terms of systems. If you go to the US, for example, all schools are almost day, all schools. And government provides free transport to all children, and that's the responsibility of the respective counties within the different states. The boarding schools are only meant for the approved in the U.S. That is the U.S. If you go to Philippines, all schools are there on the absolute up to Form 4 at the basic education. If you go to the north, the UK and the rest, it's more or less the same, except in the UK there are very good boarding schools. You see, like the royal family, because the king and the people, they were travelers and people around the world. So boarding was essential and promoted. But in Africa, where we are, we have got that kasumba of boarding because the boarding schools were meant to civilize Africans against their culture and everything. But now that since we are an independent country and we are talking about equitable quality education for all, we should not have all this discrimination of classifications of schools. Some are boarding and whatnot, and where children are even dumped as early as grade 4. Grade 4, you are dumping a child. And we are talking about development of values. Values is a continuum between home setting and the school. And that is why I think as a country, we no longer need much of boarding schools. And the 100% transition could have worked extremely well if it was focused on day school and investments done in day school, investment in terms of building up quality, modern classrooms, quality laboratories, deploying adequate teachers, and providing a broad-based curriculum that is available anywhere. The students will still do very well, and we have seen this. It works.
Ilachi, you spoke about this, and we went over it last week, I mean, to a certain degree, where you echoed the same words that Wilson speaks about this morning, and you said that there's no need. You can't have a grade 4 pupil. You shouldn't have a grade 4 pupil, grade 3 pupil boarding. And that, are we looking at a displacement of values when it shows that so many children then are boarding? And if we're looking at congestion in schools, and we can say that how many day schools are there in the country, is it not possible to have as many students as possible in these day schools? But then also looking at the situation where many parents look at a solution whereby they don't have to worry about other things because their children are in school. They don't have to worry about another meal. That's a reality. They don't have to worry about transport. They don't have to worry about 1, 2, 3. How do we create that balance?
Well, first, I agree with Sosion, and I agree. I'm believing that as we go through CBC, we'll be able to try and bring back a few of these guidelines in terms of children being in primary school, day school, up to year 9. So year 10, you can go to boarding. You are able to start taking care of yourself. But at the same time, it's because of poverty that we have taken advantage of boarding schools. But then when you look at, if you say poverty, then you realize it's not the poor, again, who go to boarding school. It is parents who have challenges maybe because of work. I'm supposed to work somewhere else and my children are somewhere else. The best place to place them is in a boarding school because of all the challenges we face with our nannies and all that. But then when you look at the crises that are there today, during our time, we were very lucky. Even when you were in school, there were some values you were able to still pick on. But you realize today, I don't know if it is something as parents we have done wrong to our children, or somewhere because of that boarding school, we left a gap that our children are in a crisis in, and we can't see. Because when we were in, for example, in Machakos on Friday, and you look at how the students are asking questions and even commanding, and you're like, in our time, this will not have happened. As much as we would be disgruntled, all of us who are here will not have done the things our children are doing today. And at that time, this child doesn't believe even her own upkeep can be shared. Yet in our time, you take your money back home to take others in high school, and this was money that was meant for you, which is a loan.
Yep.
And here my child is telling me that, why are you even giving me a loan? But in he or her mind, I was asking myself, from home, have you just left your mom wondering even where to get transport to take you to school? So if you are unable to understand that, and you're questioning, why do you bring my parent in this? Why is it that? And I said, no. We've lost our children. This generation, we've lost it. And we need to think through and see how to just help the ones who are coming through CBC to be the ones who will come up and become a different generation also, to build the country.
Wilson, I want to come back to you. You talk about quality assurance and standards. Just the other day, we saw that the High Court has given notice to the Ministry of Education and given 60 days within which the Standards and Assurance Council must be set up. So I want to look back and ask the question. I mean, you've been harping on the issue of standards and trying to at least make sure that they exist before you even try to maintain them. Why was this not done before? There are education officers around the country. They work for the Ministry of Education. This is the job that they're supposed to do. Why has that not happened? Let's even say 5 years. Let's not talk about 20.
You know, in the dictionary, there is a word called impunity. And when individuals choose the route of impunity, this is what we witness. There is no education system in any jurisdiction anywhere in the world that goes on without being regulated. And it is regulated by the inspectorate section. And these are common practice in all the Commonwealth countries. To the extent that if the president today would want a report about, say, Endarasha and the school fires, that report will not be submitted by the minister. It is not the business of the minister. It is the business of the chief inspector of schools or the director of quality assurance who is mandated by law. When we were writing the Basic Education Act 2012, yours truly was the national chairman at that time, and Mutula Kilonzo was the cabinet secretary education. We put in section 64, clause 64 of the Basic Education Act, establishment of Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council. And a semi-autonomous entity within the ministry that would recruit the best teachers and conduct the business of quality assurance. But the cabinet ministers who assumed office during Jubilee administration rubbished that clause, deliberately refused to establish the Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council, and essentially that department almost ceased to function. It was not funded. It never recruited new officers.
Why would they do that? And why would they deliberately refuse to do something which essentially would actually show that you're doing your job? I would
also like you to go there and ask them why they did that. We did raise these concerns, but there was a fear that an independent entity would take away some of the authority of the ministry. But I think there's more than meets the eye. Where there's money, there are always cartels.
There's always somebody who wants to be there.
The interest, because if you track the disbursement of free education money, there are things you can't explain. If you tell Kenyans that every child is receiving 22,000 shillings in secondary school, and the money that really gets to school is 16,000, and some of the money is retained at the headquarters to buy books and to do other things, then you can see a lot of accounting queries. And if you tell head teachers to return some, I think 10 shillings per child to the ministry times 15 million children, that translates to how many millions? And that tells you that there are vicious cartel interest making money out of this. And if you are to make money, you don't need an extra eye to watch over you. And I dare say the funding system of free education in Kenya is invested by cartels who do not want a working regulatory entity like the quality assurance. I dare say so, and I'll be vindicated with time. And you look at the policies that have been brought in also, it's more business oriented, including even the rollout of CBC, which was it was not done professionally. You can change a curriculum, nothing wrong. Bring in CBC today, bring in DDD something the next day, but do it professionally. That's what we said. But when we elect not to do things professional, that's where we go wrong.
It's vended.
So I want
to ask a question about
Latif, essentially, ministers have elected which clauses of the law of basic education they want to comply with and which ones to violate. So clause 64 has not only been violated, it has been defiled by previous ministers. Because how do you run education without quality assurance in place? And I'm happy the court returned a verdict the other day and gave the new minister 60 days. And I've checked with the minister, and he's keen to ensure that it is established. And so we are waiting for the expiry of 60 days, without which we will be going around in circles with all these issues.
We will be back here.
Never talk about mounting education without a regulatory body in place to guide you, to tell you when you are going wrong and what to do.
Please
so
inform us, Wilson. This Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council, what's the structure? How is it structured? Is it run by a board, a secretariat? How is it supposed to run? And what mandate does it have? You say it's semi-autonomous.
First of all, let's begin from known to unknown.
Yes.
In the Ministry of Education, previously, before the name was changed from Inspectorate, it was changed to Quality Assurance to look more friendly, so that it doesn't look like it is police-like.
Yeah.
It looked very polite. It looked polite.
Inspectorate is still...
But when it was Inspectorate, do you remember there was a person called the Chief Inspector of Schools?
Yes.
Yeah.
He is the one who would close schools and open schools. He would declare the date of closure and the date of opening, not the minister. And that inspectorate was made up of officers at the national, at the province, and at the district.
Yep.
And for you to be recruited into the inspectorate at all levels, you must be an exemplary teacher. So exemplary teachers, the best of the best teachers, are recruited into the system. And under the law, an inspector would visit any school anytime. Anytime.
And sit in class.
Yes.
They would come and sit behind.
Yes.
As the teacher is teaching.
Yes. So these are men and women who are expected to enforce standards and regulations and guidelines of the ministry, circulars of the ministry, to check whether each school is doing so. And therefore, they are free to visit every school anytime.
Okay.
And individually or collectively. Sometimes we'd have joint national inspection program. That, of course, you get all the inspectors. They're inspecting Nyanza province this month, and then they generate reports and share with the stakeholders. Next to the other month, they're inspecting Eastern, and then now they can generate national reports, so that at the end of every term, you have a quality assurance and standards report on everything,
covering
including
every part.
Performance of individual aid teachers, that would inform who to transfer and who not to transfer, who to demote, who to discipline.
And these inspectors would report all of them to the chief inspector.
Correct.
Who did the chief inspector report to?
Of course, the chief inspector reports to the minister.
Okay.
Or at exceptional level is answerable even to the president. And let me tell you, during times of Moi, because you were lucky to have had an exemplary teacher as a president, if he needed a report on performance of institutions or schools, he will not get it from the minister. The minister is the administrative head of the ministry. But we saw during the Jubilee administration, where the minister a minister would like to visit all the school, inspect construction of classrooms. That is not the work of the minister. And Moi was very candid. If he needed a report, he will get it from the chief inspector of schools.
Okay.
And that is a person vested in law with the responsibility of overseeing programs in schools and enforcement of guidelines.
So,
the rest do administrative work.
So come Basic
Generation
Education Act.
policy. Yes.
And that is the one that removed the chief inspector of schools?
Yes.
No, it did not even remove. The name was changed. The name was changed. There is nothing in a name anyway.
Okay.
You can call me an inspector. You can call me a quality assurance and standards officer. So the Basic Education Act 2012 envisaged devolution. The entire constitution, of course, envisages devolution and strengthening of delivery of services. So in the Basic Education Act, the view of the stakeholders was that we should strengthen the inspectorate so that it does more work. It guarantees accountability. And that is why it was suggested that it be given more autonomy so that it can be properly resourced in terms of money and in terms of personnel, so that it has a strong infrastructure to regulate our education system. That was the intention of the drafters. And the ministers who came, I think some of them, many of them saw authority being taken away. The way there's been war between the ministry and TSC. The independence of TSC was not independence, was not imperial dictatorship and powers of the chair, commissioners, and the CEO. It was that of the profession. It was not envisaged that there would be negative interpretation and territorial wars between the ministry and TSC. So the independence was basically that of the profession. So then the autonomy of quality assurance and, to be Christian, education standards and quality assurance council. That's where you'll get any report. In case even new media, you'd want to know exactly what happened at Endarasha. You will consult
This would be the
quality
body.
assurance and standard.
This
And
would
you
be
have
the body
right to
tell us.
demand from the minister
Okay.
that you need a quality assurance and standards report about the school. And
Okay.
somebody would have generated
Who
it.
sits in this council
faithfully.
according to the law?
Well, I may not have the absolute details, but of course, it will be made up of professional teachers from the top all through, and the best. And the law will guide how it regulates itself. And I don't think it would even require additional regulations other than what the law provides from Section 64 of the Basic Education Act, and I think up to Section 70. And that's an act of parliament. And how was Elijah here? It's an act of parliament that has been assented to by the president. It was part of implementation of the constitution. Tell me where a cabinet secretary who is appointed, vetted and approved by parliament will go and get imperial powers at Jogo House to elect which laws to comply with and which ones to violate and defile. Because what we have been witnessing here is pure defilement of the Basic Education Act by the ministers.
Is Parliament
and that
aware?
is why we're experiencing lots of lies.
Parliament is very aware.
Parliament is aware that
Even
this
him,
law
when
exists.
he was there, he was aware, of it. So it is just a matter of, you see, the problem, as Sosion says, you see, when we decided cartels will run education, when we decided education is no longer merit, it goes with who can do this. If you ask me, we have people who have been in the ministry for the last 45 years. And so if you have been there and things are becoming worse, then it means you should be you should now ask for leave.
Lighter duties.
Whatever. There will be lighter duties. But it's important because it's very unfair when we are talking of these issues and we are talking to the same people who were there during they had the best inspectorate docket. Now they are still there and they are not remembering that this docket assisted them to see quality education. And I think that is why during our time, education was better than what we see today. The moment we changed and we decided, textbooks, I don't know, will be done how you find a parent has to buy like 7 books and you're wondering, this is one subject. Then the most sad part, the other day, I realized these national schools have very different exams than other students. I was very sad. I felt, yeah.
What do you mean?
Oh, yeah. That's why they can never give you their past papers for you to take to another school. Because I thought, at the time you're getting all of your students in Form 4 as a country, you would wish to see them, all of them, join university. But you find there are some national schools, and I believe Sosion will tell us, because even me, I was shocked. I decided, can I ask, I won't say which school, so that we can share with our day schools and see how our children can improve. I was told, no, the ministry will kill us. We cannot share these past papers. I said, why?
Who set those exams in those national schools? Are they local?
Exactly. I would wish to know, because it was something that hit me so
Are they
hard.
internal exams you're talking about? Or are
The
they
internal exams. They can only share on each other. For example, if you're in Alliance, in Kenya High, and you can share. But they cannot share.
You cannot take it lower.
Like say,
To
for
county
example, to
schools.
St. George's, to county schools.
Okay.
And I'm like, they are all our children. They are all going to do Form 4, same exams. Nobody has a monopoly on the other. But then why? So those are some of the things. And
So
maybe that's why we need that quality.
Come back to the
assurance.
council.
Yes,
Mheshimiwa.
the council. The council, I think, as he says, it was just played on. And people took advantage that, as he says, they knew that the moment you bring in the council, they take more powers. They are more in the schools than even you. So you get that fear that people will respect the council more than they'll respect you. So
Or
it's
is it not a, if, I'm sorry, it's just to interject, is it not a confirmation then of the thoughts that Wilson had put in earlier? Because it's money.
yeah, it's money.
There's money that's trying to be protected. So if
It's
you
money.
welcome a council, essentially, that is going to be checking and balancing on everything you do,
Yes.
that is going to pose a threat to the money that you
Because
control.
even when the council is there, it will come and say, Ministry of Education, you have not sent the capitation.
Yes.
Ministry of Education, schools are now in pending bills. And so it's like an accountable docket that makes you to start being transparent, and you
yes.
don't want that.
Yes.
First of all, they will come and tell you the exact numbers of children that are, because that is one
And
grey
schools.
area. If you tell the ministry to give NEMIS numbers to children, they don't want. But then they will tell you they have 15 million children that they are giving capitation. But if you ask them, are you sure? Like now,
And we've even
many
seen
schools
non-existent schools with signposts.
not even
and
non-existent.
with ghost students.
You imagine we have schools in Dagoretti North. Nearly all my schools have roughly 3,000 kids per school. Do you know? Mwalimu will tell you even not 1 million is her capitation. Because these children don't have NEMIS numbers.
What do you mean?
What does that
yes.
mean?
Oh, yes. They don't. So you cannot tell me in Jogo House,
in reality-
there's some capitation you are sending us here. No.
In reality, a certain school in Dagoretti, physical
In
headcount
fact,
will be
2 of them.
3,000.
Yes.
But
You'll find
On
Mwalimu
paper.
having only 100 or 200 children who have capitation. 1,000 to 2,000 children have none because they don't have NEMIS number. Until the other day, I had to take Huduma Mashinani to try and start getting birth certificates,
But if they-
so that we can start getting
If they don't
at least
have NEM-
capitation.
if
So
they
you
don't-
find some schools, and I believe it's not just there. I believe if you look at many schools in Kenya, the capitation is very low. Very low.
So where does the money go?
Yeah. That's what I would wish even the ministry to tell us, because
Where does the money go? Because again, capped at 22,000 and some odd shillings, and about 17,000, about 16,000 something is what goes to schools. And that money, even the 16,000.
now that's high school. We have
That's
also
high school
capitation for primary.
But if we just look
And
at
I
high
think
school,
that
the
is
numbers
where money is getting lost completely.
You know,
But even the capitation that we're talking about today does not reach schools in its entirety.
No,
media.
it doesn't. Yeah,
Media, if you can
doesn't.
elect to zero down on the correct things to fix in the education sector, you will save the country rather than having many stories every now and again, negative. You see, if we don't have audit systems in our school system working, we'll continue with these conversations of some students not having NEMIS
Yeah.
and others having. who is supposed to ensure that every student has a NEMIS number.
Ministry.
It is the Department of Quality Assurance and Standard in collaboration with the Department of Audit Unit of the ministry. Because a school cannot exist where it is registered first. It's a public school. It is registered. Students are enrolled.
Yep.
They are given admission numbers. And I don't think the principal of the school does not submit the data to the ministry.
He does.
Yep.
And then, do we really have the correct number of the data of students, total population in Kenya, correct at the ministry? If you check, there will be so many ghost students running into millions. And the money transfer system, there are cartels. That one has been proved. You see, over time, when free education money started in 2003, the cartels positioned themselves and they perfected their art of operation during the Jubilee administration. During Kibaki administration, I think it was a bit stringent when Saitoti was a minister and brought in the PricewaterhouseCoopers to really manage the school financial processes. But over time, the cartels found their way. And do you know what about cartels? Cartels transcend regimes. They will survive in every other regime unless we deliberately decide to uproot them or we enforce the existing regulations. For example, you are in the 13th parliament. You are not in the 12th parliament.
No.
And
this is the 13th.
No, this is the 13th.
Yeah, this is the 13th parliament.
Yes.
You are not in the 12th parliament. I was in the 12th parliament. There was the 11th parliament. And the 10th parliament is when this Basic Education Act was enacted.
Yes.
Has anybody really ever bothered to ask why it has not been implemented?
Fully implemented.
Really. And the current Committee of Education.
The most interesting thing is that
these cartels also
when we go to Bunge,
able to
teachers
compromise.
are the ones who are in the education committee. Most people who have been in the
compromise.
Education
It really doesn't
system are the ones again there.
I have been there myself.
Yeah.
And I know how it operates. You know when the cartel is in the room.
You can tell. You can sense it.
The cartels sit there in the room. The cartels control everywhere. And that's a fact. Because if really we wanted to implement this ESCAC aspect, we should have done it before 2013.
Yes.
And that is when we'll answer the question that Elijah is talking about. She never needed, as a member of parliament, to personally collect those numbers and go and complain in Jogo.
There should be an officer
doing that. It is the quality. That office should have done so and reported. And that data, we have visited many countries and we have seen how education is managed and how that data is managed and how money is dispersed.
Our constitution guarantees every child in this country access to basic education. It doesn't say free, the constitution says basic education. Our government, since the Kibaki government, have said, yes, basic education shall to a great extent be free at the primary level. And in the secondary, a lot of it also is taxpayer funded. Children are to get it. We have a policy in government that says transition from primary through to secondary will be 100%. Let all children go through basic education from 0 to 16, all the way. Now, we have been disbursing the largest chunk of our budget goes into education. What quality are we getting in that education? The Basic Education Act, as Wilson Sossion has told us, Section 64, creates the Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council. Does that council exist? In law, it does. In practice, it doesn't, because it has not been constituted by the minister. The court last week directed the minister to constitute this council within 60 days.
Yes.
Now, if this council was in place, when the minister and the PS and the other bosses went to meet the president last week and told him, Mr. President, and Russia was really sad. Mr. President, we are going to give you, in fact, we are going to start phase 1 of inspecting all schools, both private and public, to check the quality and standards of all facilities and installations in all schools. And we'll come up with a report of what happened here and what's happening elsewhere. If this council was in place, the council would have reported to the president, this is the status of our schools across the country, as that day they were meeting the president. It didn't happen. The ministers were saying, we are going to start, because council doesn't exist. And that's why the two MP and former MP are here saying, it's in law. Why are we flouting the law? Wilson, you said, cartels have invested. He said, defiling the law. Cartels have infiltrated our education sector. And this is lending a disservice to our children.
Because is that not what we ought to look at the end of the day? The brick and mortar, as important as it is, when we talk about, because what leads to this behavior whereby, again, education sector gets the lion's share of the budget. It does. This year, 640 billion shillings. Let's look at 2023-2024. 640 billion shillings. We're looking at that same kind of number in the last 5 years at least. So if you're getting that big number, then you should be able to guarantee certain things. You should be able to guarantee that every child who is in school then gets what they need. If capitation has been set at 22,000 shillings per child, and we're talking just about high school, that money should actually go.
So
if we're talking about money that has, if we're talking about money that should go to primary schools, the money should go. If we're talking about a certain standard of quality that should be met, it should be met.
And don't forget, it's 600 without accounting for what parents are paying.
This is separate from what parents are paying.
This is also other funds.
This is also
like
separate. This is also separate from what parents pay when you go for orientation and they tell you that capitation will be late. We need you to pay another 30,000 shillings per year. And separate from all of that money.
All of that.
And that is
why. So does this not go towards, Sosyon? Does it not go towards real impunity? Because we're no longer talking about setting up the foundation.
You are not very sure where there is no control. Then you are not very sure whether the 640 billion is adequate or inadequate.
No, I think we are sure that it is adequate. We are sure that it is adequate, but we don't see it
as parents, it goes to $1 trillion.
Now,
as parents.
Elachi here has talked about parents paying more. That's a fact.
It happens.
So that then if you look at combined income to education, both from government and parents, will run into billions of shillings. Trillions of shillings.
Yeah.
The other day, the Speaker of the National Assembly talked about so many bursaries. By members of parliament through CDF, by governors, by women reps, MCAs. And if all that money was consolidated, we'll not need bursaries because it will be capitated against every child and schools properly funded.
Who runs the fund?
Those are now questions. Those are questions.
Why should it be a fund? We have 600 billion.
Now, my argument, the argument I'm advancing, I want you to appreciate the confusion that prevails. If all this money was consolidated, you'll not pay even a single cent. Look at Kiharu constituency, where the Member of Parliament, Dindi Nyoro, has consolidated quite a number of resources and has worked on a framework of even upgrading infrastructure of primary schools and he has done quite well. And in day schools, he has worked on a specific budget. Specific budget. The meals. He has worked on the meals and even up to the menu.
Parents pay the meals. Everything is paid on the side. He has worked on
even the uniform and the amount of fees. With all this, with the sponsorship that is able to allocate to the schools, parents pay only 1,000 bob. That means if we are to work on a model with all the money that is channeled to education, the parents will not pay even a single cent.
But those are day schools.
And that's for day schools. And basically that is where we are moving to anyway, eventually. In fact, the big debate in the House now is that should we even have boarding primary schools doing business with children from grade 4? I think by law we should be able to ban completely boarding education at least up to grade 9.
At the very least.
Except in exceptional circumstances for special needs children and ASALs, where you need such boarding schools. But in terms of the money that goes to education, to me, Kenya has done very well comparatively. I've been the president EI Africa, and I was looking at many countries who are not putting any money. Go to our neighbor Tanzania, they are doing 2% of the GDP to education. But here in Kenya, we are around 6% of the GDP and 27% of the overall budget. And you can see, and I was in the committee that drafted the education charter, and we agreed we need to put more money to education within the Kenya Kwanza administration framework. That is why you see there's a lot of money going into basic education, TVET, and universities, and a lot of conversations about it. But the question is control. Are we able to track the money and ensure that it is spent for the purpose with which it is intended, and that parents are not asked to pay additional money?
I think we're able. We just don't do it. And I think that's what makes it worse.
Yes.
We don't want. We don't want because the education chain system is controlled by cartels and interest. The moment we agree to slay this dragon of interest, and we run education in a very transparent manner. Before we went for a break, I was giving an example of Malaysia. It's a Commonwealth country. It's a country that benchmarked from us. We gained independence almost at the same time, but the economy is now almost 25 times more than ours. And I had a chance to visit it in 2007, looked at the education ministry, how it works, and how schools are funded. In Malaysia, anything called a school is guided by the plans at the Ministry of Education. And they have a fully fledged, effective planning department.
In the ministry?
Yes, in the ministry. So that if in Dakorete North, it is recommended that a school is needed, that school will adopt a proper plan of the ministry from building the classrooms, building the fields, building the staff houses, and deploying the number of teachers. That's how it's done. Good planning. Planning and planning and planning. Now the question is, if in this case we even don't have a quality assurance and standard department, do you have proper plans and working plans at the ministry? Because you must plan and plan and plan and evaluate the programs that you are rolling out. For example,
we don't have plans.
For example,
will tell you an example.
For example, you are rolling out, you decide that you want to change the education system. And I want to tell you, 844 was rolled out by eminent professionals who were put together by President Moi, curriculum experts. And proper piloting was done. It was not very easy to roll out 844. Not any country in the world can do it. But here it was done in Kenya through careful planning, careful research, and though our education system was supported by the World Bank because we were dependent on donor money. But the intentions of 844 were good, but largely very, very successful. If there were good and meticulous plans at that time and a strong monitoring and an evaluation program through quality assurance, here we don't have, we are rolling out a more complicated, resource-intensive curriculum called CBC, resource-intensive because it requires highly trained, qualified teachers who are properly recruited and properly deployed. It requires resource infrastructure in terms of, because if you're talking about performing arts and sports,
you need all those
more
facilities
fields,
in schools.
You need theaters. You look at those facilities, and you need teachers who can teach all that. Resource intensity will require maybe a budget of 2 trillion every year to mount that. And I think the summative evaluation that was done was by Professor Labanairo indicated that we need to mount CBC, we needed 265 billion additional per year. We are not ready to appreciate that fact. And we don't have strong monitoring and evaluation systems. We are not professional. We are ragtag. Let me not even say we are not even political. No, we are ragtag. And we don't seem to be sure about what we are doing.
For me, the resources are there. I think it is just how we've decided to manage the process.
If we don't have the plan,
the money is
if we don't
there.
have the supervision, if we don't have the implementation, and we don't have the professional aptitude to do it and infrastructure to do it, then we are headed to more confusion.
No,
so I think we've deployed enough resources within our
the
framework.
resources are there.
But we now need to get organized, transparent, and professional the way you do things.
Chief Justice Emeritus Dr. Willy Mutunga, Professor Willy Mutunga, once said Kenya is a bandit economy. And it is clear, even from the conversations we're having, it's banditry. Left, right, and center from the very beginning. From the beginning of the budget making process, it's all.
Oh, yeah. It starts with us in Parliament, to be very honest, how we start now taking over and allocating. So we know that, in this ministry we want this, we will allocate the money there. Here we are in which committee? Water. We want boreholes in our constituencies. We'll put money for those boreholes. Here we want energy. We'll put. That's how we do. And that's why when you ask Treasury, is it possible to just itemize a budget so that even a Kenyan who is in school can understand this budget? They will never agree. Never. And that's why when you say we have debts, then we ask them, okay, kindly show us on a sheet.
Proper
registry, annex it and show us that we had a debt of 300 trillion. Fine. We have paid 10. We are remaining this. They will never. And so it's a loophole, a gray area where we use it, and that's how now we start now ticking. If we tell ourselves, let us have open tenders where you can see every open contracts, all these things. When we talk about, and that's why when you talk about Kenyan children, you will find we have those who go to private schools. So those ones don't take government capitation. Mm-hmm. We have those in Nairobi who are in ABET schools. They don't take capitation. And there are thousands of them. Now come to the real who are in public schools. This money is enough to run a fantastic CBC program, even if you don't give them everything at a go. But at least you can give them a good lab, a good kitchen lab where they can learn catering or whatever it is supposed to be. And sports can still be there. But because we are in this mess, which we've created ourselves, and we like these loopholes so that we can undermine and be sure we are taking. But the worst now is quality of that education. Because you can't tell me we can have 46,000 E's. And we are talking about teachers. Then the worst, as MPs did again, is everywhere you want to build a school, to name it Elachi, another one, I don't know, I name it who. And those are things we did very wrong. Because that quality assurance needed to have told us, while you build this school
here,
you will need 10 teachers of TSC. And if you don't, you will not have them. So we build a school and then we start fighting with TSC. I need teachers. But you never budgeted in it, which is something, again, we need to be told.
Planning department.
Can you now enhance the schools you have without building another new school? Enhance what you have. Revamp the infrastructure that were done with others, but make it better than building a new school and then coming to say you don't have teachers, you don't have staff, you don't have money, I don't know for what. The same way we are doing with universities.
So now, as we get to that university conversation,
the same way we've done again with universities.
Where are we with that planning? Because if we're looking at the same principles, unfortunately, principles of inaction that are being applied at the primary level, at the secondary level, we're seeing the same thing, whereby there's a bit of confusion or a bit of a puzzle, not a bit, a big one actually, that is being played out at the university level when it comes to the funding model. And to say, okay, so what is going to be done? How is it supposed to be? How should it then be figured out?
The funding model, the initiative, the best. First of all, we need to ask universities, I don't know how they arrived to their school fees to be like 200% increase. That one nobody understands, because a student comes, will take care of his food, will take care of his accommodation, so you're paying tuition. But then the funding model, if I'm asked, and if every parent and child will just decide to do the right thing for him or her to get her funding, it can guide, because it's able now to give you the number of students who are now in university. We will be able to come here and say, we have 1 million students, or we have 100,000 students, because each of them, the moment you are placed by COOPS, immediately the portal is clear for you to start applying for your funding. So one of the things I think that the ministry also did and wanted to confuse parents is this thing of coming in and, for example, you say, I'm going to do medicine, then you give me the program cost. Then the parent is wondering, 612. But if the ministry just decided, program cost 612, first semester, you are supposed to pay this. The parent will know, I'm either paying 15,000, I'm either paying 30,000 or even less. But that's where that confusion started. So that it brought a lot of challenges. Each parent doing harambe at home, the child has to join for. But then, now when the students have arrived at the university, and I remember we asked each university to allow the students to come in, I'm hoping the university will now put in a full department in terms of how students can come in to appeal if you feel you are put in the wrong band. And one of the things I would want all of us as Kenyans is to be honest also, so that you go in the correct band. What we need to ask ourselves is, when you say a parent who is being paid 120,000 and according to the salaries, have you costed as per when you have taxed this parent and everything, or are you giving a blank salary and yet you are about to tax it, and therefore it will be less? I think that's where that challenge is, and therefore the bands can be more or the bands can be less, but let it accommodate each child, and let now the university, let them have their committee that can look at the teething problems that they are facing and bring in a report also and say, as the university student leaders, we have sat with professionals, they've helped us. These are our teething problem in the model, and we would wish to see if this can change. Because what I don't understand, the first, last year, the first cohort was able to fill in and they didn't have all these challenges. I don't know why in the second cohort we have faced all these challenges. And now there is an appeal. Definitely the first cohort will appeal, because you'll find most of them maybe were placed in the bands that were not theirs, and they felt at that time they were never given an option to appeal, and now there's an option to appeal. So you can see that confusion again. It's going to be more confusion than what it is. But for me, I think what is needed is a clear process so that students can understand. The universities can also tell us what are they doing to improve, because I don't think it is fair for a child to come from all the way from a rural in Suba and now is about to live in Githurai. They have to tell us, is there a way they can partner with this different Kwetu and the rest to have better accommodations for our students that are even inside? Because you have land, you find universities are leasing land to private people instead of leasing to people who can come in and build in good accommodation. What are we doing with the accommodations that are there? The paint had gone, there's nothing, it's just run down. All those things, they should tell us, because the universities also, the lecturers are paid by government. So there's all this, and that's why in the education system you find yourself questioning so many things that are just wrong.
So what was happening before? What was happening before is universities sat down and they costed the programs that they were offering. Medicine, this is how much it costs to train a student in medicine per year. This is how much it costs to train for B.Ed, for B.A. and all the others. This is the cost. And then the government was to put in a percentage of that cost called the differentiated unit cost, a certain percentage. What was it supposed to be? Some 80-something percent. And then the student or household to cover the rest.
Yes.
But the student also applies for a loan, a student loan, and for many cases, the student loan was able to cover that balance. The problem came when the government was not able to meet its commitment and obligations in the differentiated unit costs. So universities started running broke. They became bankrupt. Now universities now stopped being a going concern and they just became things. Enter this new conversation. How can we rescue this? Can we have a different way of funding the universities? Okay, we can have it in the 3 tiers. 1, government through scholarship. This is taxpayer-funded university. And then the second one is loan through the Higher Education Loans Board. And then the third one is household, where you pay. The university scholarship is then categorized into bands, and that's what Mheshimiwa Beatrice Elachi was talking about. And these bands are where each student is then weighted depending on their capacity to raise money. Those that are deemed to be able are given less scholarship than those that are deemed to be unable. The problem has come with the number one, the categorization, the method used to categorize the students. It's called the means testing instrument. And the communication that has come in throughout. And I think, Bruce, and I'll come to you, Wilson, our big problem here starts from the planning into implementation. Planning on paper looks, okay. Coming to implementation and everybody starts operating on their own. The vice chancellors and chancellors are operating on their own. Health is operating on its own. The ministry is on its own. The university's fund is operating on its own. Nobody seems to know what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not communicating to the one stakeholder, the student.
If you implement a program and it's not working, then planning is poor. And it's poor planning, poor organizing. Something that is planned very well will give with precision the results that are intended. And we are talking about the general decline of education across the regimes. During Kibaki administration, we saw the general stability of education, free education enrollment going up, affordable secondary education, and expansion of universities and universities in every county. The presence. That was good progress. But during Jubilee administration, we saw the general breakdown and deterioration of the education sector. We were number 1 in Africa in global competitiveness by 2013 in terms of quality and access. That means we were the best in Africa. No country could actually compete with Kenya. But now we have deteriorated. We are at number 7. And if we don't watch out, we'll move down. And the entire sectors were affected. The sector that is affected is the universities very badly. And you remember when Matiang'i came up from nowhere and stopped Module 2, the self-sponsored programs, which was the main artery of university funding. And it was an opportunity to open up for citizens to access university education. And it was within the ministry's strategic plan that by 2018, university transition would be at 15%. But you see, because of personal wars at the University of Nairobi, where is this conflict of interest bill should also come in. It should be able to check some of these individuals. The Module 2s were destroyed, and that went down, indeed, with the universities. And universities have remained financially immobilized up to date. They cannot mount quality teaching. They cannot mount quality research. They cannot even engage in community development. That is their missions. And when we were developing the education charter, we identified universities as the most underfunded. Even help money was at 13 billion for close to 500,000 students. And you say that this is not fair. Right now it has been adjusted to 30 billion.
30 billion.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and we saw there was every legitimate reason to enhance funding of universities and TVET, but not without changing the funding model. That matter was discussed through the Presidential Working Party, and it said the DUC had served to impoverished universities. And you know, some universities could not even pay salaries. We are aware of some of the universities that are striking now because the universities are paying 65% of the salaries. They are not remitting third-party deduction. I mean, something that has never been heard of in this country. And these were policies that were done by sane living ministers who managed to go.
Saying they're actually living. So I have to ask you then, as you say
now,
that. Sorry.
With the new funding model, the reason why the new funding model.
I have to ask, the problem that you've stated, when the Presidential Working Party did its tour of the country and then did the university level, with the problems that you've stated that were very clear, is the funding model, the way in which it is currently constituted, an answer, a solution to those problems?
Let me get to that.
Yeah.
You know, you stopped me if I concluded
I
my
wanted you to
statement.
round
Because
to
I'm
that,
now coming to the funding model. It became inevitable that deploying resources to the universities should only be done under a new funding model. Because what existed before was general blanket capitation of students, and you ask students to pay 16,000 each. Those who are able to pay and those who can't pay, you make them to pay the same amount. That was found to be untenable. And therefore, the Presidential Working Party recommended development of a new funding model, of which the vice chancellors and various teams sat and developed the current banding funding model. Is actually banding. It is still about DUC because you must declare the cost of the various courses at the universities. Now, where the problem came in is when the vice chancellors alone were allowed to be the only ones doing it. The principle of Article 10 of public participation was not applied. And I think that is why now the minister has appointed 2 committees to relook it afresh and take the process of banding, the banding process, the MTI process, through a proper process of public participation. That is what was missing, and that's what I personally raised, because when you talk about the MTI, you are talking about the mean testing instrument. The mean testing instrument has been used by HELP for the last 29 years. The HELP tool was applied last year with the current second years. That is how students were banded. And you can see that there is more noise this year than last year. Do you know what happened? This is what I established. Somebody set aside the MTI of HELP and brought in a consultant to generate a new MTI.
Really?
That is, yes, that's exactly what happened. And I made a lot of noise about it. I can account, somebody did it.
Why?
And in that banding, it placed 10,000 students in band 1.
Band 1.
And you know those who are supposed to be in band 1,
The most
vulnerable.
Yep.
Now, but when and this, I asked help because a teacher called me and told me, no, my child has been placed in band 5. And this teacher is a teacher who has relied on me to support him, to pay fees, to do many things. And asked, how on earth can you be placed in band 5?
And band 5 is the least needy.
Yes, and
Most able.
Yes, and I later on checked, even somebody who declared is a watchman is placed in band 5. Somebody who declared is employed as a maid is placed in band 5. I was keen and I asked help, and I had to ask help. What is happening? What the hell is this? And people at help told me, you see, we are no longer doing our work. Our job has been hijacked by somebody else and has brought in an MTI. The MTI that has been used is not the MTI that we applied last year. And I checked, and it was true. And this conversation has been out there. You have seen in the town hall conversation, the students explain clearly to the president, they explain to the peers, and actually the peers bears responsibility. If you are a peers, don't take over responsibilities and functions of the SAG under your supervision. Simply provide the leadership.
Let them do their work.
Let them do their work. And if help is allowed to midwife the process of MTI, there will be no noise. In fact, the
But
MTI,
we have
the
two
MTI
entities
Latif,
here.
the MTI Latif, the MTI, because those who are in Band 5, and when the MTI tool of help was applied, at least there was movement and drift of students towards Band 1.
Band 1.
Band 1 doubled from 10,000 to 21,000. And I asked, have you communicated to the students? They said, yes, they will communicate to them. You see, we must be a country that faces the truth and that does the right things. And this is where I question. This tool and this process should not have been managed by the peers alone together with the vice chancellors. Because at the end of the day, you are making courses in our public universities more expensive than in the private.
Yeah.
Because take, for example, this particular case of a teacher is supposed to pay 97,000 shillings from the household annually for a Bachelor of Science in Education. You will pay at Kaparak University for the same course at 94. So what is the essence of?
Yeah.
You see, there is something wrong about costing of courses in our public universities. And
That
this
tells
is
us-
where the Article 10 of the Constitution must come into play, because this is a major policy shift of public participation that involve the students afresh in consulting about this model.
Brings-
But also, Latif-
Involve the lecturers afresh, because this is the best model. The model is good,
The model is
but
good.
it has been mishandled. We
How-
want it to be handled
The
very
other
well.
question you
and
can ask Latif
and
is,
Latif, once it is done, and we have a model that is agreed, that is going to band students appropriately,
Yeah.
then domicile it in the school career desk,
Yes.
so that in every school you prepare students not only to choose careers,
But
they should
also
also
to apply.
understand the costing
apply.
Yep.
and how to apply.
Yes.
That is
But
how
then
it's
the
to be
other
done.
question we should be asking the ministry is, what is the difference when a child is coming to Nairobi University, going to KU on the same
Same
course.
Same course.
But if I go to Maseno, I pay less. If I go to Moi, I pay I don't know what. Why didn't they just unify? Because if I'm a parent, then am I allowed then to say I have this, and so my child will go to Maseno because it's the same career, I'm doing law, and it's more affordable here than here.
How is costing done?
Almost all these gaps, including costing, including harmonizing the cost of courses at private and public universities, could have been corrected if it went through a thorough process of public participation. That will even include the legislators, a forum for the legislators as a lawmaking institution.
So bring in all the
Batching
stakeholders.
entity. Bring all the stakeholders so that we finish this thing once and for all, and we get a model that is going to work for many years, so that by the time you have the cohort under this model,
Yeah.
completing the circle, 4th year and 5th year,
Yeah.
the university funding, financing will be stabilized.
Let me
and
ask you
even
the
the costings will also be corrected.
corrected.
And I
Let
think
me,
that
let me ask you that question.
something
before you
needs to
move
be
from
done
costing.
beyond that
Before you move from
also.
costing, Wilson, hold on.
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, how is this costing done?
I don't have the basics of how the costing was done.
Who does the
But
costing?
you see, it's simple. It was done by the vice chancellors.
So-
and that should not have been done by the vice chancellors alone. That the lecturers who teach and they have their union. Why not involve them? There are students' unions,
Yeah.
and the students' unions are represented in the Senate.
Yeah.
They actually sit in the Senate of all the universities. So then, why not involve them? You see,
Or why didn't the Senate just do this costing?
And Latif, we did not put clause 10, Article 10 in the Constitution of public participation for mere window dressing, so that we elect when to use it and when not to. The costing of courses in public universities should go through a proper stakeholder process of at least the university communities.
Everybody. Dr.
And
Malobo
everybody
Ekesa
included.
is one
And if
a
that is
lecturer.
done,
Yeah.
if that is done,
Yep.
we'll have the costings done right. We'll have the banding done correctly, and there
let
will
it be domiciled
stability.
at help,
Yes,
because help
let it
has
be
a-
done by help.
Yeah.
Don't hijack
Don't
it.
don't
Mara-
take it anywhere
we are not
else.
very sure whether it is in help.
Or is
Mara,
it
it is being
university's
run
funds?
Yeah.
by the peers in her own desk, and bringing in our own consultancy firms to every program in the ministry to make money. Do we appoint people to government to go and develop flagship businesses to make money
Yes.
and make lives difficult for Kenyans.
Yes.
It is immoral.
That's
This
what's
one is
happening.
wrong. And
The
we are
answer
telling
to
the
your question
president,
is yes.
But for
if
the
we have
last 2
characters
years-
who are being appointed to go and make money in government offices, then you have the wrong people
But for the
running your
last 2
program.
years, I don't know who has advised the president that everything you have to change the name. I don't know. Because that changing of the name also brings confusion. It's
For
the same way
example?
like NHIF and SHIF. So you even wonder. Just retain it as NHIF, but enhance it properly, make it efficient, but don't change the name. You change the name and people think it's a new animal that has arrived
and
in the room.
many of the- and-
Yet it's the same thing. And the same.
And you know,
It has to stop.
generally education needs to be stabilized. If you bring in new programs that are complicated and difficult to understand, and they've not gone through the requisite process of processing them, then you create problems. This one of the funding model is the best idea, but
No,
it
it
was
is.
mishandled.
It is.
But it is never too late. It can be corrected.
Yeah.
So that then I would even suggest even students on grade A and A minus, those are the best of the country. And within that process, why can't they enjoy the full scholarship? And
Well,
be-
but
and-
I will
and-
then
and
come
even-
and say a
and even-
child
and
who
even
went
be
to
placed in even be placed in
Nyagongo
Bandawan.
there in the rural,
Those are
in
some
a-
of
in
the
a day
things to be
school.
And got an
considered.
A.
and got an A
Those are some
or
of the
even
many
just
things.
a B plus
Yep.
in a
So,
day school.
so that is why
That's a best
this
student.
banding needs to be
It has to
revisited.
incorporate a lot of things.
And
Yeah.
majority of the students should be in a continuum of band 1, band 2, band 3. And probably there is need to consider the self-sponsored program actually to
Yeah.
be brought
Been
back.
verified.
Yeah.
Because if we
Yeah.
have 700,000 over candidature and at least 400 to 500 are potential to undertake university education,
Yeah.
why can't you have the government-sponsored load placed across the bands, maybe up to band 3, and then those band 4 and 5 can be committed to
Self-sponsored.
SSP. The SSP will come with the money,
Yeah.
and they'll sponsor these others.
And
And that's
they'll
why I say,
just-
Elaji, let's accept education is about rewarding. Those who have excelled, grade A's and the best,
No, I agree.
should even be fully sponsored by government and guaranteed employment at the end of graduating without wasting time, so that we have the best of the best joining the civil service and joining government
But the
and
problem
helping
with
us to
that-
get rid of corruption.
The
But you see,
problem is that we
the trouble
corrupted
we
it.
have,
We corrupted it. Sorry to say, when we started a private school for primary, so I go there and I know very well.
and you look
I
for
will
a shortcut
do
to a
my
national
best,
school
and I'll be in a
get
national
an A.
school, and I'll get an A,
And disadvantage
which
the
is
others.
unfair. Also,
And within the presidential working party has also recommended the abolishing of classification of schools.
yes.
So we don't need to have
I
a
agree
national
with that,
school
because
subcontinent.
even
All
when I
schools are
looked at,
equal.
in the Russia, I
Yes.
saw there were billboards. 380 mean scores. It was
Yes,
just,
and when
I
you
could
get to
not
such schools,
understand
the
that
gate
one.
is so fantastic.
Elaborate.
But
Yeah.
very elaborate.
So-
But when you get inside, very funny substandard structures. I think we've got to work as a country,
I'm
walk
hoping
the
CBC is going to finish
walk
that.
the talk.
That
We've got to
every
walk the
child
talk,
has a
walk
right
the
to-
talk, and ensure that education is properly managed. It is reconfigured properly through proper planning, organizing, and execution of programs guided by quality research, not political impulse, and not cartels' interest, and to ensure that there is equitable, inclusive delivery of quality education, and I dare say quality public education, because where a government provides quality public education, we will not need private investors and private schools and private programs.
But
We
it's
don't
my
need that.
prayer also
If you look at
that,
the example of Malaysia, for example, education is a service, is a high quality service, and it's a major service industry that's attracting students from outside, and is a main foreign income earner
earning.
for Malaysia,
Yeah.
because they have made it the best for their citizens through public, and made it the best for even outsiders
Private.
to come for education. Kenya has the best opportunity to mount quality, equitable education through public and make Kenya a destination for education service by other countries.
Well said. Well
For
said.
me, I think the best is we have an opportunity to ensure, as we roll out year 9 next year, that the ministry will now ensure that everything is in time. Parents are able to understand how kids are joining year 9. We shall have the classrooms for year 9. And even as they go for their exams this year, that we have laboratories, and if we don't have, we have mobile labs for children to ensure they are accessed well, so that we don't go to year 9 and start again the same challenge in year 10, where we'll be fighting again for the best schools.
But Moshiba,
my child will go to the
Moshiba,
best.
I hate to be the one who casts the shadow of doom.
It will be
But
done.
what are we looking at right now? Unless the current issues, which are digging this situation deeper and deeper, are addressed and dealt with, what you're talking about will be the case next year.
And I'm hoping we shall have NEMIS. Every child.
The one thing that's coming out clearly from this conversation today, the last 2 hours, is the clear and very, very urgent need for citizen activism on education. The people of Kenya need to bring all their attention back to education, and what's happening in our education sector. Our children are going to school and they're coming back home, and we are not sure of the quality that they're receiving. We have grade 7s who don't have enough teachers. They're going into 8.
Yeah.
There are 8s
They
who don't
actually
have
have the
enough
wrong
teachers.
teachers.
They have the wrong
They
teachers.
have the wrong teachers.
And we are saying that we are taking them to school. We have schools that are secondary that are not getting sufficient funding. We have children that are in university that are not even getting the proper funding. And yet we have a Ministry of Education that takes the lion's share of our budget every year. Parliament should be doing this. Parliament will do it if the people of Kenya make Parliament to do its work. Parliament, for example, has been sitting while the Presidential Working Party's implementation matrix had 6 month to 1 year items. Parliament is not asking questions on whether those things have been done and why they haven't been done.
Has it been implemented?
Why is that not being implemented? Why is the law, basic education law, that establishes a council to ensure quality of standards in our schools not in place? Parliament is in place, it's not doing that. So the people of Kenya, we must make Parliament do its work. That's the thing.
I agree.
And all the stakeholders in the education sector, Wilson Sossion included, because you know what's been happening and what's supposed to be happening, raise your voice. Come and remind people.
And
The Presidential Working Party, the report is out. It says by now we should have stopped categorization of schools.
Has it been implemented?
Has that been implemented?
By
No.
now we should be having quality comprehensive schools.
Yep.
From grade 1 to 9.
To 9.
Has it
that
been done?
implemented? Why not?
Even just
It
to
will
come
only
and look
happen.
whether we are having the grade 9s ready.
The graduate teachers who are deployed to teach grade 7, 8 and 9, and actually they are trained to teach senior secondary.
Yeah.
Did we deploy the correct teachers? And
No,
that
we
needs to
did
be corrected.
Those are the
politics with
questions.
it and decided some areas will bring more
Those
than
are the
others.
questions. Thank you very much, Sossion and Beatrice, for joining us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.